Welcome everyone to this week's Corporate Underground. This week we're going to talk about the topic of essentialism, something that I've been very passionate about for a long time. The art of essentialism is the art of understanding and focusing only on what's essential. It's about understanding the concept of less but better. And so I want to start with this little quote, which I love, by John Maxwell, which says, "You cannot overestimate the unimportance of practically everything." Greg McKeown did a book actually called Essentialism. So if anyone likes this topic, they can actually go through and have a listen to that book. It's a really great read. I listened to it on Audible. But the way I look at this, has never been a time with as much access to information as what we have right now. And we get it faster than ever before. Often too many choices give us the paradox of choice. It means that we lose sight of the important choices. And so I believe that everything is not essential. But as humans, we love everything. So how do we distinguish the signal from the noise? How do we live by design, not by default? There is a great quote that I want to raise that Steve Jobs did. And he said, "You cannot connect the dots looking forward. You can only connect them looking backwards. So you have to trust that the dots will somehow connect in your future." So if you listen to that quote, what are the dots? And how do we see the dots? And so I believe when we learn to filter information, it can rise to the surface, the essential. And so to me, I wanted to today talk about this concept of essentialism and how do we practice it? So the little tips that I want to put forward at the beginning of this is, prior to understanding any work or task, the little tips that I use are, what am I trying to achieve? What does success look like? How do I know that I'm done? And if I can only be excellent in one thing, what is it? And so these are the little filters that I use. But with that being said, I want to put it to the incredible panel here. So Tia, what do you think? Essentialism something you practice, or is it something that you just think is not relevant?
I think it's really fascinating, a topic. First thought that comes to mind is, do I put 1,000 steps in one direction, or do I put one step in 1,000 directions? So if I, for example, want to sort of double down on something, want to focus on something, then I suppose that the pro of spending time on one topic is going to get me much further. But the question is whether, like my career, if the ladder's up against the right wall, am I going in the direction that I really want to go? So when it comes back to the dots, especially with Steve Jobs' quote, and thanks for sharing that, it is that in this present moment, am I doing the things that I love doing? And one of the examples that he gave was he took calligraphy. And I remember sort of like Japanese calligraphy or shodo that he was doing. He said, "I'm not too sure where I'm actually going to be using this, but I know that I love doing it." Later, when he's actually designing the script that comes in through the Apple computers, he realizes that level of detail that he was able to go into was something that he could transfer the skills of. So I think that there is this element of, do I walk in this one direction or do I expand? And I feel that at any given moment, we have the ability to be more expansive or be more focused, or be along the wrong ladder, or to go and to be too fuzzed out. So I think that there are pros and cons to the approach. And I think the nuance of the moment will allow us to dictate which one do we spend a bit more time doing. Do we spend more time expanding the situation if we're in a corner, or do we go and get some more direction if we really need it?
Adam, what do you think?
I think it depends on context. I think it's a really interesting conversation. And I think there are times where, to Tia's point, you need to expand, and there are times where you need to focus. But to me, having been a practitioner of meditation for a while, to me, the question is it's a little bit like meditation for me, in that where you have to remove and extract all of the superfluous to be able to get into the place that you need to be. And I think a lot of this is about energy. It's about where you're prioritizing and where you're putting yourself and putting your energy into making things work. And as someone who's had multiple startups and stuff, there are times where I really need to burrow deep. And then when I'm a manager, there are times where I need to be broad. And I need to just know enough to be dangerous in a lot of different pots, because there are other people who are doing things with me. But sometimes my expertise is required and I need to go really deep. But I do think that part of the digital world that we live in is, as you said, there is so much information and there's so much coming at us 24/7 now, that the ability to be able to go, actually, that's not important. It's nice, but it's not important, so that you can discard it easily without any emotional damage is really important.
For me, it's really simple. Do I feel good and am I happy? That's pretty much what it comes down to for me. If I don't feel good, you're doing something and it's just not connecting. And am I happy? Because if I'm happy, I can make others happy. Nobody can make me happy. But if I'm happy, then I can generate that for others. So for me, it comes quite simple.
This ticks a lot of things in my head. So it's, first of all, less is more quite often, okay? Like if you set yourself 12 things to do in a day, you'll probably be a scatterbrain and you'll be lucky to get 3 things done. You set like 4 or 5 things to do in a day and you'll probably accomplish them and feel very achieved, like, yeah, I got to do everything I wanted to get done. So I do believe that there's a structure I follow. So it's always start with the end in mind, okay? So all you need to just know is roughly, where do I want to be? If you ask someone, listen, in 5 years, what is a perfect day, like perfect work day or personal day? Describe that to me. And sometimes that gets them thinking about it because no one's ever thinking that far ahead. No one's actually thought about the end yet. And then I say, chunk it back. All right, so if you said, I want to be at this stage or whatever it is, just chunk it back. So to get to that, what do you need to do? And then to get to that, what do you need to do? And like very simply. And then what you can do is kind of get like 5 rough dots, as we were saying earlier, of where you want to go. But if you don't have that end in mind, then you're really going to have a struggle to go.
Tony, what do you think?
Okay, so I mean, besides the idea of knowing the end in mind, chunking it back to where you were, and then having that rough plan, don't over, strategize. Like I'm in digital marketing, and sometimes people over strategize, and digital marketing is naturally agile, so you don't want to over strategize. So I feel like that can contribute to life a little bit. Have the end in mind and then chunk back. But the other thing to keep in mind is that, like, my marketing brain's like firing off all things now, is that when you do marketing, if you've got like 5 to 10 options of your packages, let's say you're selling a service like a SaaS system, people don't like that. You need to have 3, and then that increases sales. People don't like actually making decisions. Proof of that is certain countries have like 90% donor on their license, and other countries have like 6%. And they're like, why, like, these countries are so similar? Like, it might be like France and England, and like, while they may not like each other, they are still quite similar in so many ways. So it's like, why are they so rapidly different? And it's because this country, on your license, it's opt in, and on the other one, it's opt out. So by them, people not liking to make decisions, and it's not just opting in for something as serious as that. It could be anything. People just don't like. In newsletter marketing, you get people to opt out rather than opt in because they won't be bothered. So it's this natural part of understanding how your mind works. So I think that plays a part in it as well.
So with the advent of social media and people waking up every day and checking their Facebook and checking their LinkedIn, and what are the tips in making sure social media doesn't distract you or take you offline? And what are the tips that anyone on this panel can recommend to start to look at essentialism in distractions from you actually getting to focus on the things that you want to do? Have you got any tips from anyone here about how we could apply essentialism in that distraction mechanisms that some of this new digital world that we live in plays?
I think for me, it's start the day with what you want to spend the day doing, and know what it is that you would, whether it's a schedule that you want to follow or whether it's there's a practice that you would like to have. Starting the day in alignment with yourself is already a massive thing to do, because to be reactive in a situation, to wake up with reactions, oh gosh, got to do that. Oh, here's my to-do list. Oh, let me write it all down. And before you know it, the day gets away. And was it exactly what you wanted? So start the day in accordance to what your principles are, whatever it is, whether it's an activity that you'd like to do. Some people start it with meditation, whether there's a ritual that you do that you're starting your day with. But have that ritual as something that you practice, which is your time, in the way that you want to reflect.
Yeah, just to add to that, sorry, Matt. It's almost like doing a priority order. There are naturally things that you will lose track of time on. Okay, obviously social media is one of them. But you ever sat down to watch a movie on Netflix and then 3 hours later you've picked it and you're too tired and you go to bed? Like it's that option of choice, where back when we just had whatever was on, we'd just sit there happy and watch it. So too much choice will distract you, and there are natural activities that will just chew up time. Like some people only do their email between 9 and 10 and 4 and 5 or something like that, just to make sure they don't blow out their whole day on it. So I feel like you'll feel more accomplished if you set the things that'll make you feel accomplished first, accomplish them, and then you can have burnout time as long as you like after that.
So what I did with my mobile phone, because I only have my social media on my mobile phone, is I moved it to the last screen, the very last, and then I put it in a box called regret. So every time I open it, I know it's going to be a regret for me to actually do so. So just that little cues for me that go through. In my office, what we did was we actually had our routers and we would slow down Facebook. You could go onto it, but it was just so slow while it freed it up for everybody else. And the third thing we do at home is we actually set up our wireless to actually turn off at 9:30. So all of a sudden you're like, I've got to get up and I'm just going to go to bed. So some little things that I've done that really work for me, because going to Tony's point, it's I've got to opt in to do something or opt out, and I'd rather just go, right, I'm opting out. I'll go home. I'm going to feel better if I get sleep rather than staying up till 3 o'clock in the morning watching something.
Yeah, see, I'm the opposite, because I stay up really late every day, and I don't see social media as a distraction. In fact, I see Twitter as a critical part of me being able to build a dialogue in something that's important to me. So again, I think these things are contextual. One man's terrorist is another man's freedom fighter. I think people have to pick and choose the things that are distractions, and they have to pick and choose the things that are core to what they are and what's important. In terms of how to get through the day, like Tony said and Matt said and Tia said, I start every day. I've got a little booklet here. I start the day, I write the 5 things that I'm going to get done by the end of the day. Now, independent of how many meetings I have, how many emails, how many phone calls, how many distractions, what the kids need, I don't go to bed until those 5 things are done. And sometimes they're really large things, like I have to write a report. Sometimes they're small things, like I have to call a person. But at least I know at the end of the day that the things that I determined yesterday were the most important things for this next 24 hours have been done. And then to your point, then I can spend 2 hours on social media if I want to, because, I know the day ended with something of value.
So how many social media devices do you use?
Not a lot. So LinkedIn, Twitter and Instagram. Instagram is personal because I love taking photos. And so that drives personal pleasure for me. LinkedIn is where I do my business. And that's really where I actually don't even represent myself. I represent the university, because that's how people get a hold of me. And then Twitter is the political me. And so, I go hell for leather, I go hard, I do it often, and in fact, the times I have tried to take, because I thought it would be good for my mental health to take time off Twitter, I found actually the mental health was worse, because that is a key outlet for me. And what I was doing was depriving myself of a place where I can actually have conversations that are fundamental to who I am. And so when I stopped having those conversations, that was much harder than just having them in abundance.
That's really interesting, Adam, because it gets to my sort of last question for this panel, which is the concept of essentialism is, if you have information in your day, it's not about just filtering it. It's about understanding where to prioritize. It's about less but better. So the information you're putting priority to is, if you can get rid of some other information, the other information comes in, it's better information related to a target. And so you just told me a great story about what's better for you and how that works for you. I was just interested for the rest of the panel, do you have an anecdote or a story about how you've realized, I need to get rid of that information to make sure I can let this better information come in so I can make better choices?
Yeah, no is yes for me. Being able to say no to something or someone or something that I don't want to do means that I spend more time doing the things that I would say yes to. And I think that defining exactly what I want to remove out of my day, for example, if I don't want to be, spending my time looping around the different social medias, then I need to say no to it. Or there's a certain time that I would go online, or a certain reason that I would like to share. But if I'm not doing that, then it's important for me to say no to it. And it could be absolutely anything. There's certain activities that I don't want to be doing so much that maybe they just don't bring me the kind of joy. Like, Adam was talking about mental health. I think having a conscious effort towards good mental health is a practice. We all have it. What are we doing to create that link between mental health and well-being?
Yeah.
Well-being being the activities that we spend doing that.
Maddie?
For me, it's I take from 1 to 2 o'clock out every day to spend with my son, and we go on adventures. So we'll go out and do treasure hunts, and I'll take some gold coins and put them down, or the human contact where I have my son every day who's 2 years old, come in and take off all his clothes and jump in the shower with me. And it's just that whole human contact thing where, for me, it's the best part, the two best parts of my day. So my decision is, why don't I do that for 3 hours or 4 hours? So I often have to look at this particular job that I'm doing. Would I rather go on a treasure hunt and find some gold coins, or go and jump on the trampoline, or do I want to do this meeting? It'll be a bloody good meeting. So that's my leveler.
Tone?
I can't think of any stories right now, and I don't want to have a bunch of dead air while I think of it. But you know, I guess like, I literally, if you want to screw with me, delete something out of my calendar, because I will not remember anything I do. If it's not in my calendar, I won't know it's going to happen. I literally won't remember anything that's upcoming because I've chosen to not put that in my brain, because that's just something I don't need to retain, because I've got a calendar that's always on me with phones and stuff like that. So that saves me a lot, because like, I have very busy schedule. I have a lot of things I juggle and with different people and companies and stuff like that. So that's a way to not be burnt out, because like, you do burn out trying to remember stuff. And that sense of like stress when you go, I feel like I've forgotten something, what is it? And that stress, like, if you don't find a way to put that so that you go, well, it's not on my calendar, so I don't have to worry about it. I literally don't get that, oh, I'm forgetting something, you know, because I don't ever have to think about it anymore. So I
guess you don't get stressed unless you lose your calendar, right?
Oh yeah, when the internet is down, then I'm screwed. But you know what? Yeah, who cares by then?
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. All right. Well, that's it. That's a great topic for today, guys. Thanks so much for your input. It's been great. Essentialism. Check out the book. Hope you've got some value. Thanks again. See you guys next week.